So there I was, Marcus Webb, small-time grifter from Cleveland, staring at the most terrifying prison in the known galaxy. And how did I get here, you ask? Well, funny story. I may have accidentally stolen what I thought was a really nice hover car from a parking garage on Luna Station. Turns out it was the Andromedan ambassador's personal shuttle. Whoops. In Mox. Nexus maximum security prison floated in the void like a massive metal tumor, bristling with weapons that could probably vaporize a small moon. The transport ship's captain, a lovely fellow who kept referring to me as dead meat walking, cheerfully explained that Nexus housed the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. We're talking planet killers, genocidal maniacs, and being so evil they had to invent new categories of war crimes just to prosecute them. Great, I muttered, watching the prison grow larger through the porthole. Just great. The docking bay was all harsh lighting and angry-looking guards with guns that hummed ominously. As they processed me through intake, I tried to maintain my dignity. Sure, I was probably going to die horribly within the hour, but at least I'd do it with style. The processing alien, who looked like a cross between an accountant and a praying mantis, chittered at me through the translation device. Species human. Crime, grand theft of diplomatic vessel. Sentence, life without parole. Cell assignment, Block Omega. Block Omega? I asked. That sounds ominous. The mantis accountant's compound eyes somehow managed to convey pity. Block Omega houses our most dangerous specimens. We assume you will be dead within 24 hours. It is nothing personal. Well, that's reassuring, I said, as the guards slapped energy shackles on my wrists. I don't suppose there's a Block Alpha for beginners? No response. Tough crowd. As we walked through the endless corridors, I caught glimpses of other cell blocks through reinforced viewing windows. The inmates looked like nightmares given form. Things with too many teeth, too many eyes, or in some cases too many dimensions. I was starting to think that maybe I should have stuck to pickpocketing tourists on Earth. The guard stopped at a massive blast door marked with symbols that probably translated to something like abandon hope, all ye who enter here. One of them, a burly creature that resembled a rhinoceros crossed with a filing cabinet, grunted at me. This is it, human. Try not to die too loudly. We have noise ordinances. The door slid open with a sound like the universe sighing in disappointment. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Imagine a gymnasium locker room, but the locker room was also a morgue, and the morgue was on fire. The second thing that hit me was the realization that I was surrounded by creatures that could probably use my skeleton as a toothpick. Fresh meat. Someone roared from the shadows, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. A massive figure emerged from the gloom. 8 feet tall, covered in scars, with arms like tree trunks and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by someone who really hated granite. This had to be Krug the Destroyer, whose reputation preceded him like a freight train of terror. Hello, I said, because apparently my survival instincts had decided to take a coffee break. I'm Marcus. I'm new. Krug stared down at me with eyes like burning coals. Then, to my complete shock, he smiled. Welcome to Block Omega, small human. I am Krug the Destroyer. I have leveled 13 planets and reduced entire civilizations to ash. Would you like some tea? I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Tea? Krug repeated, holding up a delicate cup that looked like a toy in his massive hands. I find it soothes the nerves. Prison can be quite stressful. Before I could process this information, a voice whispered directly into my brain, do not trust the politeness. It is a trap. I spun around to see a pale, gaunt figure crouched in the corner. Vex the Mind Ripper, the telepath who had supposedly driven entire populations insane with a thought. He was clutching his head and rocking back and forth. Your thoughts, Vex whimpered, they are so chaotic. So random. Why are you thinking about sandwich recipes while facing mortal danger? I don't know, I admitted. I'm stress eating in my mind. It's a human thing. It is disturbing, Vex moaned. Please think more organized thoughts. Preferably about fear and despair. Those are easier to process. A new voice cut through the conversation, smooth and deadly. Leave the human alone, Vex. Can't you see he's terrified? I turned to see a figure that somehow managed to be both beautiful and absolutely terrifying. Zara Nightshade, the assassin who had killed royalty across 12 star systems. She was examining her fingernails with the casual interest of someone checking the weather. Actually, I said, I'm more confused than terrified. This isn't quite what I expected. And what did you expect? Zara asked, raising an eyebrow. More murder. Less tea service. Oh, we can arrange murder, came a chorus of voices from everywhere and nowhere. Murder is always an option. We enjoy murder. The collective. A hive mind entity that had consumed entire space stations. Great. However, the voices continued, murder is not scheduled until after lunch. We have a very organized day planned. I looked around at my new cellmates. The most dangerous beings in the galaxy, and they were quirky. Krug was still holding his teacup. Vex was now muttering about the therapeutic benefits of meditation. Zara was organizing her collection of improvised weapons by size and lethality. The collective was apparently running on a schedule. This is either going to be the best thing that ever happened to me, I said, or the worst. And honestly, I'm not sure which would be more surprising. It started small. On my second day, I noticed Krug and another inmate, an armored creature called Skullcrusher Pete, they were about to engage in what appeared to be a fight to the death over who got to use the exercise equipment first. Ho, I said, stepping between them. Guys, come on. This is basic playground stuff. Krug paused mid-swing with what looked like a modified chair leg. Playground? Mia? Yeah, you know, sharing, taking turns. Didn't you guys have playgrounds on Planet Destroyer Elementary? Skullcrusher Pete's helmet tilted. We settled disputes through trial by combat. Winner takes all. Okay, but hear me out, I said. What if we tried something revolutionary? What if you both got to use the equipment just at different times? The silence that followed was deafening. Then Krug lowered his weapon. You mean we could both exercise? Crazy idea, right? We could even set up a schedule. Maybe Krug gets morning sessions, Pete gets afternoons. Revolutionary concept called time management. Within an hour, I had them arm wrestling instead of attempting mutual annihilation. Krug won, but Pete got to use the equipment first as a consolation prize. Both seemed remarkably satisfied with this arrangement. Word spread quickly in Block Omega. The weird human could solve problems without anyone dying. This was apparently a novel concept. Vex sought me out the next day, still clutching his head. The voices, he whispered. They never stop. So much anger, so much violence. I cannot filter it. Have you tried meditation? I asked. Meditation is for the weak, Vex snarled, then immediately looked apologetic. Sorry, that was the prisoner in cell block 7. He is very opinionated. Right, so you're picking up everyone's thoughts? It is my curse. I read minds to torture people, but I cannot stop reading them. It is overwhelming. I sat down next to him, which caused several nearby inmates to back away nervously. Okay, so you're basically a psychic radio that can't change the channel. That sucks. Yes, Vex said, looking surprised that someone understood. It sucks very much. Let me teach you something from Earth. It's called mindfulness meditation. Basically, you focus on one thing instead of everything. Like breathing. 20 minutes later, Vex was sitting in a proper meditation pose, his face peaceful for the first time since I'd met him. The relief was so obvious that other inmates started gathering around to watch. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Quiet," Vex said, wonder in his voice. "For the first time in decades, it is quiet in my head." Zara approached me later that day. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Shoot." "How do you organize your living space?" "I have 17 different types of poison, 43 weapons, and detailed blackmail files on half the galaxy's politicians, but I cannot seem to keep my cell tidy." I stared at her. "You're asking me for housekeeping tips?" "I am trained to kill efficiently, not to live efficiently. It is surprisingly difficult. So I taught a galactic assassin how to use drawer organizers and the importance of a designated place for everything." She took notes. The collective was next. They surrounded me one day, speaking in perfect unison. "We have a problem." "What's the problem?" "We cannot agree on what to have for lunch. There are 47 different opinions and counting." "Wait, I thought you were a hive mind." "We are. But lunch is complicated. Some of us want protein. Others want carbohydrates. One of us wants to consume the weak, but that is Gerald, and we do not listen to Gerald." I introduced them to the concept of compromise and majority rule. They were fascinated. By the end of the week, the guards were scratching their heads. Block Omega had gone from the most violent section of the prison to the most organized. Inmates were scheduling their conflicts, mediating disputes, and actually talking to each other instead of just threatening murder. "I don't understand it," I overheard one guard say to another. "They're all still terrifying criminals, but now they're terrifying criminals with good communication skills." It was Krug who gave me the idea. "You know," he said over tea, "you have solved more problems in 2 weeks than the prison staff has in 2 decades. "It's not that hard," I said. "You just treat people like people instead of animals in cages." "Revolutionary concept," Zara said dryly. "Someone should write a book." "Actually," I said, "someone should run this place properly." The silence that followed was different from the usual shocked silence I'd grown accustomed to. This was thoughtful silence. "You mean," Vex said slowly, "take over?" "Not take over. Improve. Look around. Half the fights in here are over stupid stuff. Access to the gym, who gets the good prison food, personal space disputes, basic resource management." The collective hummed thoughtfully. "We have consumed entire civilizations. We understand resource management." "Perfect. Krug, you understand conflict resolution through physical means. Zara, you know how to organize and plan. Vex, you can read people's intentions before they even act on them. I know how to make people work together." Within a month, Block Omega had been transformed. I established a barter economy using commissary items as currency. Suddenly, instead of fighting over cigarettes and protein bars, inmates were trading services and negotiating deals. Krug became the head of what I diplomatically called physical education. Essentially, he ran gladiator matches with safety rules. Inmates could still settle disputes through combat, but now it was organized, refereed, and nobody died unless they really wanted to. Vex started the galaxy's first prison therapy group for telepaths. Turned out, there were a lot of psychics in prison and most of them had the same problem he did. They met twice a week to practice meditation and discuss healthy mental boundaries. Zara took over covert security. She could identify potential riots before they started and defuse situations through what she called proactive conflict resolution. I called it scaring people into behaving, but her way sounded more professional. The collective became our living database. They recorded every regulation, every precedent, every piece of useful information. They also ran a surprisingly popular trivia night every Thursday. The guards noticed, of course. Kind of hard to miss when your most dangerous cell block suddenly started running like a well-oiled machine. But here's the thing about prison guards, they're not paid to ask questions. They're paid to prevent riots and keep people from escaping. We were making their jobs easier. Captain Vortex, the head guard, pulled me aside one day. "Webb, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. My stress levels haven't been this low in 20 years. Just treating people with basic respect," I said. Revolutionary concept. Apparently. Warden Thex is coming for inspection next week. Keep things quiet. "No problem," I said. "We've got it covered." That night I called a meeting of what I was starting to think of as my cabinet. "Guys, we need to talk about what we're doing here." "What do you mean?" Krug asked. "I mean, we've essentially created a functioning society in a maximum security prison. That's either really impressive or really concerning." "Why not both?" Zara suggested. "The point is," I continued, "we have a choice. We can keep this quiet and just enjoy our improved living conditions, or we can make a statement." "What kind of statement?" the collective asked. "The kind that says maybe the galaxy's approach to criminal justice is completely backwards." Warden Thex arrived with a full inspection team, expecting to find the usual chaos. Instead, he found inmates lined up in orderly formations, cells that were actually clean, and a general atmosphere of cooperation. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. Captain Vortex looked as confused as his boss. "I don't know, sir. They just started behaving." "Prisoners don't just start behaving," Thex snapped. "There's always a reason. Find it." They found me in the common area, mediating a dispute between two inmates over library privileges. The inmates in question were a shape-shifting assassin and a cybernetic war criminal, and they were having a perfectly civilized discussion about scheduling. "You must be Webb," Thex said. "That's me. And you must be the warden who's been running this place like a medieval dungeon." The guards tensed, but Thex held up a hand. "Explain." "Meh, easy. You've been treating symptoms instead of causes. These people aren't violent because they're evil. They're violent because they're frustrated, bored, and treated like animals. Give them purpose, structure, and basic respect, and suddenly they don't need to stab each other over soap." "That's absurd. These are the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. And now they're the galaxy's most dangerous criminals with good communication skills and a sense of community. Which would you rather have guarding your back?" Thex walked through Block Omega, his inspection team trailing behind him. They saw Krug leading an exercise class that was actually a carefully managed way for inmates to blow off steam. They saw Vex running a group therapy session that had reduced mental health incidents by 90%. They saw Zara training inmates in conflict de-escalation techniques. "This is impossible," Thex muttered. "No," I said. "This is what happens when you treat people like people instead of filing them away and forgetting about them." Word spread quickly through the Galactic prison system. Other wardens started requesting transfers to Nexus to study what they were calling the human experiment. Rehabilitation specialists arrived from across the galaxy to observe our methods. I found myself giving lectures to prison officials about basic psychology and social organization. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was teaching people how to run institutions when I'd spent most of my life trying to avoid them. The key, I explained to a group of wardens from the Centauri system, is understanding that punishment and rehabilitation aren't mutually exclusive. You can hold people accountable while still helping them become better people. "But these are hardened criminals," one of them protested. "So was I said. I was heading down a path that would have eventually led me to something much worse than shuttle theft. But being here, having responsibility, having people count on me, it changed me." Thex pulled me aside after one of these sessions. "Webb, I have to ask, why are you doing this? You could have just kept your head down and served your time quietly. Because, I said, for the first time in my life, I'm good at something that actually matters. I spent years running small-time cons and feeling like garbage about myself. Here I'm helping people. Real people who've done terrible things become something better. That's not a con. That's, I don't know, redemption? The Galactic Parole Board has been watching what you've done here, Thex said carefully. They're impressed. Meaning? Meaning your parole hearing has been moved up. You could be out of here in 6 months. I should have been thrilled. Freedom was what every prisoner wanted, right? But as I looked around at what we'd built, at the people who'd become my friends and colleagues, I felt something I hadn't expected. I felt conflicted. The parole hearing was everything I'd dreamed of and nothing I'd expected. The board consisted of representatives from 12 different species, all looking very official and impressed with their own importance. Marcus Webb, the chairwoman, began, "Your case is unusual. I get that a lot. In your 18 months at Nexus, you have not only avoided disciplinary action, but you have somehow transformed the most dangerous cell block in the galaxy into a model of rehabilitation. Care to explain?" I thought about giving them the standard parole hearing speech about being reformed and learning my lesson. Instead, I told them the truth. I found out I'm good at helping people. Not conning them, not taking advantage of them, but actually helping them become better versions of themselves. And it turns out that's something I actually want to do. The board has received numerous testimonials on your behalf, another member said. Not just from fellow inmates, but from the prison staff, rehabilitation experts, and even victim advocacy groups. They all agree that what you've accomplished is unprecedented. Thank you. Which brings us to our decision. The chairwoman continued. Marcus Webb, you are hereby granted parole, effective immediately. You are free to go. The words hung in the air like a challenge. I looked at the board, then at the door that led to freedom, then back at the board. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course. What happens to Block Omega when I leave? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, one of the board members spoke up. We assume it will return to its previous state. So all of this, everything we've built, everyone who's gotten better, that just ends? Mr. Webb, you are being offered your freedom. Most people would. Most people, I interrupted, haven't spent the last year and a half watching murderers learn to meditate and assassins learn to organize their sock drawers. Most people haven't seen what's possible when you give people a chance to be better. I stood up, which seemed to surprise everyone. I respectfully declined parole. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. The chairwoman banged her gavel for order. Mr. Webb, you cannot decline parole. It doesn't work that way. Then change the way it works, I said. I want to stay. Not as a prisoner, but as a rehabilitation specialist. Pay me minimum wage. Give me an official title. I don't care. But I'm not leaving. It took 3 months of bureaucratic wrangling, but they did it. I became the galaxy's first prisoner rehabilitation coordinator, with an official office in Block Omega and a salary that was barely enough to buy coffee. 6 months later, the Nexus model was being implemented in prisons across the galaxy. A year after that, I was getting speaking requests from law enforcement academies. 2 years later, someone offered me my own TV show. Rehabilitation with Marcus premiered on Galactic Public Broadcasting to surprisingly good reviews. Who knew that watching a small-time human con artist teach anger management to genocidal aliens would make for compelling television? The show's been running for 3 seasons now, and I still live in Block Omega. Krug is my co-host, Vex handles the show's psychological consulting, Zora manages security, and the collective runs our social media presence. We're basically the galaxy's most dangerous therapy group with cameras. And here's the thing nobody talks about in those feel-good rehabilitation stories. Sometimes the best leaders are the ones who never wanted power in the first place. I didn't set out to revolutionize the galactic prison system. I just wanted to survive long enough to maybe steal something else someday. But it turns out helping people become better versions of themselves is way more satisfying than conning them out of their money. Who knew? Knew. So there you have it. Marcus Webb, former small-time crook, current prison reformer and minor television personality. The galaxy's worst criminals contained, until a human was locked in with them and accidentally taught them to be better people. Not bad for a guy who started out just trying to steal a really nice hover car. The end. The end. And if you think this story is unbelievable, you should see what we accomplished in Season 2 when they sent us the war criminals.